Our next speaker is Dr. David Cook. He's a cybersecurity expert with Edith Cowan University. He's a lecturer for ECU's School of Science, a member of the Australian Centre for Cybersecurity Excellence, the Vice President of the Australian Computer Society with the academic boards of 2020 to 2024. He does extensive teaching in cybersecurity, terrorism and digital ethics, and he's a leading researcher in Geron technology, senior citizen security, online radicalisation and technology ethics. I'll try saying that after a few Prosecco's. So let's please put your hands together for David Cook.
Thank you, Rebecca. This mic, how are we going? Can we hear me okay? All right, good. So excited to come back down this way. Every time I come down here, it's always raining or thundering. Thank you for putting on the good weather. I've just come back from Cyprus. 2 days ago, I was in Cyprus at a 6G Wi-Fi international conference. One of my roles, which Rebecca went through loads of different roles, but she forgot the most important one. I'm the Australian representative to IFIP, which is the International Federation of Information Processors. Try saying that after a few Prosecco's. Which is, I'm your representative to the United Nations on the internet. And so I went there to Cyprus amongst all of the Russians and the Ukrainians and all of the mob gangsters to talk about not 4G and 5G, but the new installation of communications, which is 6G, 7G, 8G, low Earth orbiting satellites and a whole range of things. Crime was everywhere, and it's a fun thing to do, to be in a room full of thieves. There were ATM machines, which were fake ATM machines, that if you put your card in, it would take all your details, steal your money. Lots of offers from various people, Greek well-breasted women asking me if I'd like to go back to their room. It was all on. It was a fantastic time. And my wife's probably listening. She's got excellent hearing, so she knows all about what these things happen. So the bottom line is, and I love what we had. I'm going to take a slightly different way of explaining things, because I like to think that if you can't have a good reflection of yourself, you really have to dig deep and say, you know, am I any good at this? Am I good? So let's just do a few just honesty tests. Hands up who's on Facebook. Okay, 2/3 of the room. That's excellent. Is that a good thing? Well, it's a huge, giant question mark over your safety, so you do need to have to reflect on things. I've got no problem with that. I loved the advice about don't post your holidays whilst you're there. So I'd waited until I came back before I posted the fact that I'd been with cyber criminals and thieves, because I thought that would be useful. And plus, some of them know where I live, and I thought that would be good too. So yes. One of the interesting things in Cyprus, they have little markets for kids where you can get little toys and things. When I used to go to these toys, you always used to try and win a bow and arrow or a little water pistol or things like that. Now, in the kids' markets, they have a fully replica, a Glock pistol, weighted so it feels like a real handgun. That's what the children of Cyprus, the good Cypriots, the Greeks and the Turks, love to play. To any Greeks or Turks here, please don't shoot me, but that's what I saw there. Now, I want to talk about what's happening for you. So this is an interactive part from me. If you have any questions in the middle, don't wait to the end. Put your hand up. I'll stop and answer questions. Whoever's got the mic, feel free to wander around and make that happen. Mention something about cards and the fact that some people get asked to pay iTunes cards. Anyone been asked anything to pay with iTunes cards? But there's a much bigger evil that's opened up, and I want to talk to you about that before we go on, because it's here in Bunbury, which is close enough to here. So I thought I'd just talk about Bitcoin. Hands up who owns some Bitcoin? Anyone? A couple of Bitcoin owners? You've got some Bitcoin? And just tell me, what shops do you go with your Bitcoin? No. The fish and chip shop? Hungry Jack's, are they doing Bitcoin? Macca's? It's a number and a pin. Fantastic answer. What I wanted to point out to everyone is Bitcoin and all these other cryptocurrencies, some people are into them because you can make money, and you can definitely make money if you're savvy. Do any of you have a degree in cryptocurrency? And that might be a pointer as to one of the things you might do. At least have an economics degree or something so that you can bed yourself down. Or otherwise, it's gambling, and that's fine. You can bet on the Eagles. I wouldn't bet on the Eagles a lot, and I also would... And I also wouldn't buy a lot of crypto. But in my dealings, I was with Bitcoin right from the beginning when it first came out. So I can talk about Bitcoin a bit. When you get a scam these days, there are two kinds of what we call ransomware, where someone sends you an email, you click onto the email, and suddenly on your email your computer locks up, and it locks you out of your own photos, and it locks you out of access to things, or things just don't work right. And then you get a message saying, you know, the stuff we heard about earlier, like, I know what you did, I've got photos of you, you know, I can extort you and I can do sorts of things. It's called ransomware. Now, in America, it's huge business, but on corporations. So there's two levels at which ransomware takes place. At the corporate level, and we've had some here in Australia, not too many, thank goodness, but in America, they take a hospital to ransomware. They lock it out of all their systems, and they say, give us $20 million, otherwise your patients can't get any of that. And everything's online these days. You know, the Fiona Stanley Hospital is Australia's finest digital hospital. But if it's under attack from ransomware, then I don't even know how much medicine my patient is meant to give. And that's a real problem. People die from that sort of stuff. So lo and behold, we got to a problem where when things like ransomware kick in, normally you've all seen at least one American movie where the American president says in an American accent, we do not negotiate with terrorists, okay? But the reality is that we actually do. The reality is that when it comes to ransomware of hospitals, governments and large corporations cave in, and they do. It's awful, but they do. Now, at the personal level, we also have ransomware where you personally click onto something and you're locked out of something. And someone says, yeah, I know something, I've got photos on you, or I've locked you out of this, and if you want to have a look at the photos of your grandchildren, you'll never see them again, whatever the extortion is. And in the olden days, last year, in the olden days, it would be an iTunes card. That was the number one method by which they would get you. Why? Because they'd say to you, we need three $50 iTunes cards, and you'd go down to the post office, or if you were savvy, you'd go to Woolies or Coles, but you'd go to the post office and you'd buy these iTunes cards. Why? Because you just scratch the number off, and then the criminal, wherever they are, just gets the number. And they just use that number and turn it into money. Okay? So from a criminal's perspective, and I'm explaining to you so you understand what criminals are about, they do just want your money, but they also have another underlying feature. They don't want to get caught. Don't forget that for a moment. They don't want to get caught. Most cyber criminals don't get caught. They're exceptionally lucky because most of us are a little bit we're just uneducated in all of these things. So I don't want to overcomplicate you, but the simple fact is an iTunes card, scratch the number. It's like a scratch and win lottery ticket. You know those little $5 ones? Anyone got those? Yeah, that sort of thing. You just scratch it, you get the number, and you just send a message to the criminal. They do that. And then if they're good, they may release back to you and unransom your goods and so on. But in most cases, they don't. Right. Okay, so that was last year. Now let's dial it forward. All that stuff I was talking about with hospitals, they'd say we want $20 million in Bitcoin, right? Or $20 million in Ethereum. And they'd all be in cryptocurrency. Why? Because you can't follow and track the person in crypto. Bitcoin's the classic one. Don't know who it is. So something recent's been recently, I guess, it's happened over the last few years, but in the last 12 months in particular, we now have Bitcoin ATMs. Anyone seen one? If you're not sure, I thought I'd read out. The closest three to here are 124 Victoria Street in Bunbury. That's a Bitcoin ATM called CoinFlip. There's the local Bitcoin ATM at 18 Arthur Street, Bunbury. And then if you want to go 17 kilometres away from us to Dalyalup, there's a CoinFlip Bitcoin ATM there. They're the three closest ones. They're popping up. What are they for? This gentleman tells me he's not buying anything from Macca's with Bitcoin, so why do you need a Bitcoin account? Well, you might be an investor, but why do you need an ATM? They are the number one instrument being operated in WA at the moment, the number one instrument for people who hold you to ransom to get you to pay them their money so they don't get caught. It's as simple as that. And the WA police in particular, AFP, a number of Scamwatch, but everyone's looking at these things because Bitcoin ATMs are fantastic if you're a criminal. They don't want to get caught. And that means the one thing about a cyber criminal I want to point out to most of the people in this room is you don't know who they are. They could be the person sitting next to you. I'm going to go with unlikely in this room, but just in case. And they could be in another country. Yes, sir. Who's putting the... Who's putting them in? Who's putting the Bitcoin ATMs in? Well, companies are... Anyway, they were started at the casino up in Perth, the Burswood Casino. They've been there for a couple of years. But just recently now, they're popping up in shops. I have no idea. I've not been to 124 Victoria Street, but I'm guessing it's a shop. It's possibly a newsagent, something like that. So these are the sorts of things, and they're encouraging people to buy and sell Bitcoin. And you might think that's okay, but it's a bit like saying I'm encouraging you to have a bank account with Bankwest. Equally, a similar lack of shops or places to go, because you're just dealing things. So it might sound a bit silly to you, but they didn't do this for you. They did this for them, the cyber criminals who want to take your money. And Bitcoin has been around. Everyone's heard of Bitcoin, right? It's fantastic. People have won millions or they've got all sorts of things. It's fantastic. But the number one thing about it is the major criminals in the world who buy and sell guns, particularly from countries that don't have sanctions against them. When North Korea wants to take in a few $1 billion worth of missiles, they're going to use some cryptocurrency. It might not be Bitcoin, or it might be. When they're trying to get drone technology into the Houthi rebels in Yemen, right, well, they're probably going to use a cryptocurrency. And when you're here in sunny Bunbury or nearest Dammit in Australand, you're probably not going to buy many missiles and guns and tanks. And so Bitcoin doesn't come in handy unless you've been held to ransomware. So I just thought I'd mention that to you. Now, I asked you about who was on Facebook. Who can tell me how much they paid when they joined Facebook? Just remember that. How much was it? Nothing. Not a cent. Not a brass razoo. And I want to give you some facts about Facebook. When you join Facebook, and if you ever bother to read the fine print, it says you've got 90 days. A 90-day, if within 90 days you don't like it, you can give it back to them and say, I don't want you to keep my stuff. The moment you get to 91 days, they now share your content. Whatever you write, whatever you put in it, whatever the picture is, you put a picture of your grandkids up there, they can share that. They're not stealing it. So let's be clear, under consumer law, they're not breaking the law. You entered into a contract when you signed, you said, do I agree? Remember those things? And how often have you ever punched the button on that says, I agree, or I consent? Well, these consent buttons, they come up every day. And that's part of the problem. So a quick reflection on ourselves, not blaming anybody because I'm on Facebook too, but I've got to tell you, I've been on it for more than 90 days. So all of my photos are something which other people can see, and so other people. And just to reinforce that, of course, when you do go on Facebook, what sort of things? I often tell people about the golf story because I'm a notoriously bad golf player. There's a picture of me, and I played golf, and there's this really... I'm very happy with the photo. It's a lovely pose of me, supposedly looking like a really good golfer. Really, for me, it's not GOLF, it's FLOG, right? But the real thing about it was the day after that photo went on Facebook, down the right-hand side of Facebook, would I like to go to Malaysia to a golf tournament? Would I like to go into Perth to buy some golf clubs? Would I like to join this golf course? And so on, all this stuff. Because I'm, as someone hinted out earlier, I'm not the customer of Facebook, I'm the product. They're selling my information. And that's the legitimate stuff, the stuff that they're legally allowed to do, let alone the criminal stuff. It's an environment that invites people to take whatever you've got, to just suck it up and use it. Hands up who's on Temu. Be honest. Who's tried it? Okay, all right. Now, when you tried it, one of the things it had was one of those negative default things that I think you were relaying to. What does it mean when it says, do I do this? Is this a yes or this is a no? And it's too confusing. But a lot of the ones, and Temu does this brilliantly, is to do what we call the double negative. Is also just to say, do you not want to consent? If you know what I mean. And so you're going, should I tick yes or no? And then it scrolls to another page. What was I meant to say? And before you know it, you've consented. Most people who've tried Temu, without realising it, have in fact turned on the tracking for themselves. I know just on some stuff I've done at the university, I've done about 800 people, and everyone who said, yes, I was on Temu, but I got off it, still had it on their devices. Still had the tracking. So one of the things I want to enforce with you is this idea that cookies. Who likes cookies? I love cookies, but only the ones you eat, not the ones that store things. And cookies are legal, but I want to tell you what the law is for us. So if you're in Europe, We have a thing over there called the GDPR. It's this way of keeping people accountable, and they can enforce you to take down cookies. In Australia, we are not signed to GDPR, and there is no piece of legislation that forces you to have to say yes to a cookie. So that can include things like a bank. It could include the Commonwealth Bank or the National Australia Bank telling you you have to use their cookies. You do not have to in Australia. If you go to Europe, you do. That's the GDPR. But in Australia, currently we are not signed. Most people don't know that because most of you don't do a law degree as well. So far we've got an economics degree, a crypto degree, a law degree. It's going to get hard for you to keep up with everything. So in real terms, you don't have to say yes. Some of you, hands up, who's got grandkids or kids that use your phone and look at games on their phone? Hands up who's got kids that look at games on your phone. All right, I'm sure that there's more than the 5 or 6 hands I saw, but let's say just with those 5 people who put their hands up. Anytime you have a game that goes on there, it's going to ask some tricks. Have you ever seen it says, ask, and you come a little message, ask not to track. Have you seen that message come up anywhere? It's giving you an option saying, I don't want to track it. But actually then that's just a sort of a attempt, a sort of an entree to the next one, which actually says, well, you'll need this. As if say, no, I won't track you, but you need this other. Which you don't realise that when you click onto the next one for the game, they're actually now tracking you. And so what that does is it tracks where you go and what you do. All of this information is aggregated against you. And what you have to understand is that in computer data centres, it's not a person typing this information, it's just aggregating information. Hands up who's got a Woolworths Everyday Rewards card. Okay. Hands up who's got a Coles Flybuy card. Hands up who's got a Coles Flybuy card and a Woolworths Everyday Reward card. You do realise it's a loyalty card, don't you? Okay, all right. And this is legal, all right? I'm not suggesting for a moment that Woolworths or Coles are being bad about this. They simply want to know where you go, what you buy in their shop, and how you bought it. So when you use your Flybuys card, interestingly, Flybuys or Coles or both or whoever the wider group is, this corporation, gets to know, did I pay cash for it? Did I pay on a debit card? Did I pay on a credit card? If I paid on a credit card, what's the remaining balance on the credit card? That's private information that people, and so they can actually work out whether you're a pauper scraping by who's got $100 left on their credit card, and a lot of people are, right, who are paying a lot of interest rates on credit cards. Credit card debt is crippling. That's the legal part. And then, so I'm just trying to explain that in this room alone, we've got people who are doing all of these things that don't look that different to what the criminals are doing when you stack it up. Okay? I'm not saying for a moment that you shouldn't go to Coles or Woolies, because Aldi have got a rewards card, my IGA has got a rewards card, I don't know where to go. Right? So my point isn't about that. My point is you've given it away. And what did you give away your personal information for? A $50 voucher every 12 months, or a set of a frying pan or a saucepan or something you got from Coles or Woolworths, right? And you're going to have to weigh that up with your entire file. Now, the file on you, I mean, I've been with Flybuys for a few years. It must be really thick. Because I'm going to let you in a little secret. Every second Wednesday, I go to Coles in Inglewood, and I buy a 2-litre tub of ice cream and a packet of chocolate Tim Tams. They never go home. I take them to work. My wife, I don't tell my wife. I just take them. She's going to know now because it's filmed. So this is the secret. Coles in Inglewood knows more about my shopping habits than my wife. Well, we've only been married for 31 years, so so it's a start. Obviously, we may be some trust issues. She does track me wherever I go. She was tracking me all through Cyprus. She knew all the seedy places. Luckily, they were all seedy. So there was nothing to argue about. But that's the thing you've got to remember. You and I both share in the experience of giving away too much information on not just any day, but almost every day. And I think that's the important thing. Anytime you've got something where you don't, if you're already on Facebook, there's no point saying, I'm getting out of Facebook now, because if you've been in it for more than 90 days, which was several years ago for most of you, then most certainly they've got a track on you and they know what you do. And one of the things they do is they often pop up information specifically around what you've just been talking about. They put information, go, how did they know I was talking about that? I won't get into the inner machinations of what we call the pixel to explain that, except to say that your phones, whatever they are, whether an iPhone or a Samsung, they're going to have these things. Now, I want to give you a couple of tips along the way, because I just don't want to give you, really, little reminiscences of all the bad things I've done in life. That would take a long time. Get rid of your bottom 10 friends. Okay, they're not your friends because they're the 10 people you don't even know. So once a week, here's something you can do. Get out your phone, if it's an iPhone or a Samsung or something, or even an email list and say, have a look at it. Who's this monkey? I don't know who that is. Just get rid of them. Just delete them. You won't miss them. And if they really are someone, important, they'll come back to you. Get rid of them. A lot of companies do that with staff. Deloitte's, right? KPMG, they get rid of their bottom 10% of all their stuff. So these are the people, they're okay, but we'll get rid of them. They're not going to make any difference to the business. You can do that personally. Get rid of your bottom 10 friends, because they're probably not the people that you know. Unless you've only got 10 friends, in which case, hang on to a few. But I'm going to guess that some of you have got more than that. All right. So, and what else do I want to say? Games tracking. That'll do for the moment. Let's just jump into some things and see where we go. Now, I often do this talk for older people, so I often ask that if you're not born in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and 60s, that you should get out. But I have noticed a couple of younger faces. All right, down the front here, I can see there's some younger people, so we'll stick with that. All right, cyber criminals are after three things. Now, before we get into them, what's the average age of a cyber criminal in Perth, in WA? It's between 15 and 25. 15 and 25. Those are the average ages for cyber. Now, of course, all your cyber crooks are not here. They could be overseas. Some of them are in Singapore, Bali, Malaysia. Some of them in Russia. There's a few I can point to in Cyprus. You name it, they're waiting for you. And they're of different ages. But the great majority of cyber crooks these days are younger, not older. And you should prepare yourself for two things because of that. One, they don't have your moral compass. They don't care who you are. And so all of that stuff we're listening to, all that lovely advice about romance games, they do not care. They will put on the most wonderful, words to convince you, but at the end of the day, they are just ruthless people who think it's a funny game. And most 15-year-old kids, most of them are male, most of them come from split homes, but we won't get into all of the differentiations. So 15 to 25. Think about that. 15 to 25 is the age of the person that really wants to steal the money from you. The second thing is, hands up if you've got your mobile phone here today. Okay, hang on to it, won't you? Because it's the single most important piece, the single most important device that you've got between you and a cyber criminal stealing things. Think about it. It used to be that a passport was really important. We don't need passports. We're only a year or two away from before we're going to have e-passports on your phone anyway. So don't worry about going to worry about your passport. Worry about your phone. In the olden days, when police went to home burglaries, that was the one thing people go for. They'd go for that. And then we went through different things. When immobilisers came in the 90s, that changed the way. So there were differences in car thefts. People now go in and try and grab your car keys. They try and grab cash. But the number one thing they'll go for is your mobile phone. Why? Because it's got everything on it. Everything. And the most important things are the things that you might not think are important. So when you're trying to get into your bank account and it says, hang on, I'm going to send you a multi-factor authentication. It doesn't say that, but it says, and it sends you a little 6-digit number on a text message. Anyone hand to those? Yeah, okay. That's all the thief needs. He just needs your phone, that 6-digit number, and after he's got that, he can jump in and change your account to make it his account. Or her account, but most of them are him's. So I want to talk about that. So, banking, shopping and appointments. Let's talk about banking. Where do you do your banking? Online banking, there's options, loads and loads of different options. The most important thing is if you do online banking, hands up who's got banking on their mobile phone? Yes, okay. So is it okay to use that? Is it safe to use your mobile phone? Because we pay things, we buy things, we do it all the time. Again, the most important thing is don't sit down somewhere using the public Wi-Fi to pay a bill. Now, when I say phone, I also mean your tablet, your Samsung or your iPad or anything else. Some of you pay bills online and you go, oh, I've got to pay this now. And you pay. It's getting easier and easier to just pay it online. But be careful when you're doing that, right? Be very, very careful about that, because when you're paying online, if you're doing it, let's say you're in the Australind Library which has a free Wi-Fi. It's what's called a pancake system, right? Same if you go to Perth Airport. In fact, if you go to the city of Perth, I'm not sure if Bunbury has it in there, but they might have it. And places where, if you go to Dome Cafe, they've got free Wi-Fi. Macca's, thank you, Macca's, Starbucks, all these ones have got free Wi-Fi. When you've got that, you're on what's called a pancake network. And what that means is you're on the network, you're on the network, I'm on the network. And together, if we have enough, cybersecurity knowledge, we can look at each other's stuff. And so hands up all those people who've got a cybersecurity degree. Okay, and then you can narrow down to those people who are likely to steal money from you in a free Wi-Fi sense. They'll do it in a library. They'll do it in Macca's. They'll do it in Dome. And I'm not blaming these companies because they provide a good service. I quite like a McDonald's burger. But it goes well with the ice cream and the Tim Tams. Okay, so banking's important. Whenever you're doing it, making sure that you are connected. If you're doing it off your own phone and your own data, that's fine. But most phones have a default setting. And particularly if you buy one brand new, if you go to the shops, it doesn't matter whether you buy an iPhone or you buy a Samsung or whatever brand you get, the person who sells it to you is going to default it. Say, I'm going to save you some money here on your data. Oh, good. And every time you go into a free Wi-Fi thing, it will automatically change to the data, the free data, which means you're now on somebody else's pancake network. It just doesn't come up with a message to say, beware, don't pay a bill right now. That message just isn't in there because it wouldn't be good for business and Apple iPhone wouldn't sell many iPhones and Samsung, it would just be bad. So they don't mention that. They just say, yeah, it's great, you'll save lots of money on data. Your best place, of course, that some of you have got internet at home and you've got an internet password, protect that like you wouldn't believe, if you can. If you think it's been compromised, and again, great advice we heard earlier, you can check to see if anyone else is on the network. If you've got anyone else on the network, change the password. Right? Now, you're going to say, how do I change a password? Very easy. You find your box, your internet box, your NBN box, whatever it is that you've got. Now, some of you have joined the NBN, but you've done it through Telstra, or you've done it through Optus, or you've done it through your own, because there's 180 different places that sell NBN now. Whatever that company is, they've given you a box. And on the back of that box, you have to turn it upside down, and it's got a set password, quite often a little default one. And quite often people know these default passwords. Huh? Yes? The question is it a modem? Yes. The little box, it can be called a modem, and sometimes it can be called a router, and sometimes it's called a modem router, and some people with other accents call it a router. But anyway, but you're on the right. It's the little box that you connect into to get to the internet. And what you can do here, because I want to give you real advice that you can use, because I don't know how you change the password on every single one is, you get the little model number off that box, and you type it in YouTube, and you go, YouTube, how do I change my password? With that number. So you go into Google, you type www.youtube.com. You're into YouTube, and you put in password change router or modem, it'll work either way, and then you get whatever that number is for whatever company box you've bought, and it will go step by step in a YouTube video clip and tell you how to do it. Problem solved. You don't have to read an expert, it'll be there. Now, what I do when I look at YouTube clips, by the way, my wife constantly buys things, and I've bought a new refrigerator. She bought a digital fridge. Okay? Our fridge tells me when we're running out of milk, Diet Coke, all the various things, right? Can you imagine that? It sends me a little message. It's got tiny little LiDAR sensors. They're the same little LiDAR sensors that are in your cars that help swerve from traffic, except they're really cheap. So don't pay $3,000 for a digital fridge. You can get one for $1,500. And these things will tell you, of course, if your son puts the Diet Coke back where the milk is meant to go, you might find that you buy an awful lot of Diet Coke and you don't have any cereal. So you've got to wait till you go to work so you can have the ice cream and the Tim Tams. All right. So one of the things about digital devices is they've given you lots of options. What my point was, whenever my wife confronts me with a new washing machine, fridge, vacuum cleaner, you name it, anything, I go to YouTube. And I ask YouTube. And when you look at YouTube, there won't just be one answer on how do I set up my digital fridge. There'll be 10 or 15 or 20. I just look at the top few. Find out the one that's the most popular. Have a look at the comments. Was this useful comments? But before you know it, you've found good advice. And if you're not sure with that, find a second one, all right? And set your own things up. Because these days, most of your problems are that, A, you didn't go to ECU and do a digital degree, all right? Shame on you. That was my shameless plug. I work there. You could go to any university, but you're not going to. The people in this room are not suddenly going to leave here and enrol in a 3-year degree, except for one guy that I know down the back. But that's all right. He's halfway through, so there's no problem. The rest of you are not going to do that, so let's give you advice that's going to work for you. Use YouTube. I do. Most cyber criminals do too. So you just check it. You have a look and you say, how can I set this up? So any question about how to change something. Now, we had some questions before about password managers. I am dead set against password managers. Right? I was very heavily involved in doing research on password managers, and a couple of years ago, there was one in the States, a very, very popular one called KeePass. And KeePass was great, everyone was using it, and then it was sold to the Hells Angels bikie gang. See, when you've got your passwords stored in a company, some other company, you don't own the company, and then you're basically saying, well, I hope this company is a trustworthy company. How could you possibly know? Someone asked a particular, I can't remember the one that was put up today to ask you, but it wouldn't matter what name you said because I don't know whether to trust them. Question at the back. What about password managers through your antivirus company? I'm just not there. And I'm honestly of the opinion that you should manage your own passwords in your brain. The single biggest thing I have is I use passphrases for everything. Okay? I'm quite happy to share one that I've had with you for a few years. So I'm old school. A few years ago, I was doing an electronics degree, had to understand all of the resistor. Anyone, electricians, people in the room? I had to understand the resistor colour codes. And they've got a little, remember in the old days with analogue phones, you had all these different coloured wires, right? Well, they all meant something, the different colours. And you had to know the resistor colour code to be able to plug them all in the right place. So you had to remember, there were 100, I could never get them. Anyway, I came up with a particular rhyme, which was to remember me. So it was, bye-bye Rosie, off you go, Birmingham via Great Western. If you're an electrician, you've heard there's a ruder version of that, but we'll stick with that one because it's a public audience. Bye-bye, Rosie, off you go, Birmingham via Great Western. How did that help me? Bye-bye, Rosie. Tell me the colours. Bye-bye, Rosie, black, brown, red. Off you go, orange, yellow, green. Birmingham via Great Western, blue, violet, grey, white. That's the only reason I was any good at electronics, because of silly rhymes, okay? And to be honest, and if you're a school, any teachers in the room? Teachers? Okay, you'll know that this is a mnemonic, all right? And there's a whole pedagogical methodology behind why we do this, but it helps people to remember stuff. So you don't have to remember, bye-bye, Rosie, off you go, Birmingham via Great Western, because that's no longer my passphrase. I wouldn't be telling you it was the current one. But I held that passphrase for a lot of years, and I carved it up into multiple passwords. Let me explain to you in very simple terms. That bye-bye, Rosie, off you go, Birmingham via Great Western gave me 4 passwords. So going on your 90-day thing every 3 months, the first password, bye-bye, Rosie. Second one, off you go. Third one, Birmingham. Fourth one, via Great Western. Now, of course, you make the first letter a capital letter. You put in some numbers. And please don't use 0 or 1, because everyone uses 0 and 1. But you don't have to have it being 1,342,768 or anything silly like that. So for me, it would be bye-bye, Rosie, 2, exclamation mark. Off you go, 4, exclamation mark. Birmingham, 6, exclamation mark. Via Great Western, 8. 4 passwords, 1 passphrase, 1 memory. And if you're like me, I can't remember what I had for breakfast last night, yesterday, whatever. It changes in my house depending on whether it's Coke Zero in the evening or in the morning. We haven't had any. I've got a teenage son. Things are very disruptive. But for most of us, we can't remember all that. Who's got more than 1 password? There's a problem. Hello. Okay. So what do you do with that? You see, I don't. At any one time, I have a passphrase. And I know that I carve it up into these 4 things, and on a particular day, I'll change particularly all of these non-essential ones, right? I'll just change them all on the same day. I go from, bye-bye, Rosie, whatever, to off you go, and I hold that for another 90 days, and so on. Now, that's my version. I don't use that anymore. You choose your own passphrase. Question? Would you use the same password for 7 different sites? Yes, I would. I would. But I make a difference between the passwords that you're sometimes asked to put in for something which is nonsense If it's nonsense, I don't include that in my circle of trust. I simply make a throwaway password, right? The Eagles will win the flag. Or something silly, okay? Whatever. Actually, enough. Make it funny enough so you remember it. Don't make it grim, because people don't remember grim things. Make it funny, all right? So, question behind.
Yeah, I was told not to use words because there are programs out there that do dictionary searches for any language. So I just wondered what your comment would be.
My comment about that is that was really good advice back when we used to do brute force mechanisms. Now that we have AI, it doesn't matter what you use. It really, really, really doesn't matter. The single point is not what AI can find out about you, which is anything and everything. Okay, particularly be more worried about what you have tracking things, because when you type in a password of any incredibly long length, right, once you've done that, if things are tracking you, they'll also track the memory of that. They'll track the number. They'll track the number of digits in that password. And before you know it, once you've used it a few times, it's very easy for AI to work it out. Really easy. So my answer to that is, that was great advice 2 years ago. Now everyone's got ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot. It doesn't work anymore. It really doesn't. Yes. Now, I saw a couple other questions go up, so you'll have to give me an audio. Yep, this one first. I think over there.
Somebody told me recently with your passwords to finish it with an exclamation mark or a hashtag, because it avoids or helps to stop people who are phishing.
Okay, so there's 2 or 3 things as to why I finish things sometimes with an exclamation mark or a hashtag. But you need to use some kind of descriptor, such as a question mark or a hashtag or a thing. I like the exclamation mark because it helps me to remember them, and I'm bad at remembering things, so I make it an exclamation mark. But you could use whatever. You're just filling in the numbers of things, and if you want, turn it the other way around. But it doesn't really matter in the age of AI. What matters most is that you change it. And I get people coming up all the time saying, I've got a fantastic password, you'll never guess it. I don't need to guess it. Someone asked earlier about the cloud. Who was it said about your cloud? Who was that? Someone? Here, sorry, thank you for that question about the cloud. The cloud, and you can look out here, because there's a few clouds, there are no computers here. It's simply your information on someone else's computer. And in most cases, the cloud is a dingy shed somewhere in India, or the Philippines, or Mauritius, or Cyprus. It's places where land is super, super cheap. Now, we do have data centres in Perth. We've got the NextDC, the great big black building with the red on there, right next to the Perth train station, but none of you can afford to use that. That is where the government stores our medical records, and they do a good job. So our medical records are stored in Australian data centres. They're not allowed to be stored on any other soil other than Australian soil. That's great. But the real question I think that you're asking is, where are my photos stored, right? If my photos are in the cloud, or I think you're asking about your club documents or materials, these things are in the cheapest possible place we can find for you. You see, because your photos, for those of you who are worried about your photos are only really sentimentally valuable to you. And I would look at them and go, oh, photos, no, ugly fat kid, no. I would, shouldn't have said that. I am an ugly fat kid, so I can get away with the fat jokes. But the point is that you have to remember there's a cost to storing data. There's a cost to doing anything with your phone. There's just the cost of electricity to keeping the computer on that stores your data. And so in India, we have these enormous data centres. And I've been to quite a few of them. Most of them are in Bangalore. And in Bangalore, they'll have these different parts where you get to see... Okay. I'm on my second slide. She says, you've got a few minutes to go. I think there was a little disclaimer saying we could go over time. But all right. So one of the things about these data centres is they're not well protected. In the ones in Bangalore, the power cuts out every second hour. There's a sacred cow at the entrance to sort of guard things. But when you go in there, there's no size to the computers. They're just racks and racks of boxes of power supplies. It looks like someone threw up in a box of wires and did it across the whole room. And that's what you're talking about in most data centres, where your photos, your club materials are going to be stored. So you're doing it because it's cheap, all right? And that's all there is to it. If not, put them on your own computer and release them when you want to. Take control of your own stuff according to what you can afford, because when you join Facebook, they store your photos for free. Well, it's not really free because they're going to try and sell you advertising, but that's what they're doing. And it's the same. Hands up, who's got a Gmail address? How much did you pay for it? Not a razoo. And this because they're hoping they'll get that back out of you in revenues and other things and so on. We're getting it. All right, let's keep going and see how much of this we can get to. Oh no, I need to go back, sorry. So I talked about banking, I didn't go to shopping. Let's say we're doing some shopping and I want you to say, I'm going to buy something online. Let's say I'm going to buy an airfare. Anyone bought an airfare online? Because let's face it, no one goes to travel agents anymore. So we'll say we're going to buy an airfare and I want to fly to Sydney, and I'm looking up and I go to Qantas. All right, so what do? Well, I go onto the Qantas website. Now, when I'm on Qantas website, it's got a good website. I can select the flights, work out where I'm going. It's going to say something like www.qantas.com.au. Is that right? Well, not really, because actually it'll have that stuff in front of it, http://www.qantas.com.au, right? Yep. Okay. And importantly, that HTTP is a method. It's like an addresser, the hypertext protocol that helps you to understand. So you get to the right place. You get to Qantas and not Qantas with 2 S's. You just get to the right place, and that's important. When you get to all websites, to the part where you're going to buy something online, a very clever thing happens that a webmaster knows about, and most of you don't know if you're not a webmaster. You get to what's called the payment gateway. The page subtly changes. Nothing comes up to say, you are in the payment gateway. It just ever so subtly changes, but there are a couple of things to look for. If you're on the Qantas site, the HTTP will subtly change to an HTTPS. S for security. And so you can go, oh, now it's HTTPS. Why? Because they know you're about to enter into a card number, a debit card or a credit card, and they want to make sure that they're securing that. And so that HTTPS protects you, right? And it's this dual handshake. It's a handshake between you and Qantas, and I'm using Qantas as an example, obviously, to say, we're going to look after your credit card. We're going to store it in the most secure manner, not put it up on websites where people can find it and use it. Right. Now, sometimes on the same thing, further down, you see a little padlock. Anyone seen that little padlock? It should be on the exact same line as the HTTPS. If it's not on the same line, then most likely it's a fake website. There's lots of people put them. So really keen thing for the keen eye, because it's your money, when you're looking at HTTPS. If it's got a padlock, it's down the other end of that little section, that little envelope at the top. Now, what that lovely padlock is doing is what we call the 4-way handshake. It's you, Qantas, Visa card and MasterCard, who control all of the other credit cards, all 4 of you doing the 4-way handshake, all agreeing to look after your credit card details. And it's at that point only that you want to give up your little 3-number CVC or CVC number on the back of your card. If you can't do that, maybe you don't want to actually lose all of your money. And I would suggest that you just wait till you see that, if you can. Particularly if someone on the phone, I'm very suspicious. I know some people get desperate and they have to, but over the phone I'm very hesitant to give my CVV number, all right? And I know people have lost money. If you have to do it, and I'm saying this with all truth because some people have had to do it, they've been in desperation. Once you get a chance, ask for a new card and change it. Simple as that. That's the best you can do. Question here.
Dave, thank you very much for everything so far, enlightening. AI bots. Can you give us some information about chatbots and AI bots?
Yeah, sure. So an AI bot is particularly just a well-trained script of information that is designed to try and guess what your most likely answers are. And quite often, there's a funny one on the radio today, actually, which is the new Hungry Jacks one, because I don't know if you've ever asked the AI, there's a new AI Hungry Jacks spot. You can tell what I do with my life, can't you? I come and do talks, and then I go to McDonald's, Hungry Jacks, and Coles in Inglewood. So there's a new one, and it's very, very obviously AI because the voice sounds a little bit robotic. And if you ask it personal questions, because it uses a personal name, I said, Melanie, how are you? It said, I'm here to help you with your hamburger, or something like that. I can't remember. Very obvious. One of the things is that an AI bot is there to sort of guide you through things to save Hungry Jack's money. It's really not 100% there to help you with anything other than the most basic of information. And the moment you get into details, be careful, you are not talking to a person, right? You're not. And so I wouldn't be handing over things. If the AI bot, and this is where it gets dangerous, starts to sound incredibly intelligent, asks you all sorts of questions, I would say, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And so there's 2 sides of AI bots. There's the simple one, Like if I ring John Hughes car yard to buy a car, the John Hughes AI bot sounds a little bit like John's brother, and it's very clever. But it really quickly wants to direct you off into a phone call. And that's where it could get either commercially safe with John Hughes, or it could be disastrously unsafe because it takes you to somewhere else. So chatbots that take you to another place where you're offline, or you have a conversation and suddenly you head to someone else who's got a different accent, you can't quite hear what they're saying, but you don't know. And they could be from any number of different countries. All right? I remember that, I won't go into that, we haven't got time. But one of the things about Chat AI Box is to be really important to make sure that if it takes you offline to something else, to a different place you're chatting, be exceptionally careful. Now, I do definitely want to get into these bits very quickly. I want to talk about, okay, so Quishing. You seen these QR codes? Okay, they popped up on bus stops in Perth, and you can click onto them, it tells you what the timetable is, when the bus is coming. You see them on trains, I've seen it at the airport. I've seen them we had them over COVID when people had them in restaurants. You had to click on and, But unless you're an expert at computer code, anyone can put any stuff up there. You can actually click onto one of those, save it to your phone, and it will take over parts of your phone, and it will rob you. So please be very, very aware that you shouldn't use a QR code unless you absolutely have complete faith. And these days, I've seen them in pubs where you go into the order, has an order, and you have to order your drinks. You can't go to the bar and buy them, you've got to order your drinks. I don't know if they're in this room, I hope I'm not upsetting anyone, but it's got a QR code. I just go to the bar, because I might not be going back to that pub, I just don't trust them. So that's an issue of trust. Now, quickly, I want to go into what I actually drove down to Brumby to talk to you about, and that's about SMS messages. In your phone, you trust the messages way too much. Can you remember the first ones that you got? Here's one. It said, confirmed case of novel coronavirus. Your child must continue to isolate for 14 days until the last contact. So this was one that came out in 2020 and 2021. Some of you got text messages. That's when you all started using your phones. You see, 6 years ago, none of you would have brought your phone to an event like this. But ever since then, everyone carries their phone with them now because you get text messages. Now, this message, I'm going to say it's trusted because it came to say, for more information, visit Healthy WA, https://healthywa.gov. See the blue stuff? Yeah. This stuff. All right. That's the dangerous stuff. Because on your phone, if you touch it, it takes you to a website. Now, this is a real website. So I've put in there saying it's trusted because it's healthywa.gov. But when you get it, you don't know, there's nothing coming up on the side saying trusted. It's just a website. And so some of them are trustworthy and some of them are completely not. All right, here's one from Crust Pizza. I'm going to give away a little bit more information about myself. Oh, let's go back. There we go. Crust Pizza. There's Crust down here in Bunbury? I don't know. It's a pizza place. Probably nowhere good as the lovely pizzas that were put down today, but it's near my house. Now, my wife sometimes goes out with her friends, and on those nights, my son and I starve, and so we go to Crust Pizza. Anyway, like any good pizza place, they've got an online ordering system, and so you've got here. So here we've got Crust, and I live in Mount Lawley. Crust Mount Lawley is 8 today. Quote, 8 birthday and you get $8 off your total pizza. Well, I thought that's fantastic. We ordered 2 and we saved ourselves $16. My wife often tells me things. She says she comes back from shoe shopping and she never tells me how much the price is, but she also says, guess how much I saved you? And so my way of getting back is to tell her what I saved her on Crust Pizza. It's not an even game, but I'm working on it. Okay? So here's the first one. You order it. And you've got a phone number there. Now, I started to think to myself, hang on, I've been ordering a few Crust Pizzas. Who is this Mr. Crust Pizza? So I went down, wasn't far, walked down, talked to the guy, Mr. Crust. There is no Mr. Crust. I talked to the manager and I said, how do you do all of this? He pointed out the back to a 15-year-old boy folding pizza boxes. That's the total skill that this 15-year-old boy had was A, he can fold pizza boxes, and B, he does all the online orders because he's really fast on his phone. Now, if you know that with young people, it's like, you are like Hunt, Peck, really slow, and fast kids are like, so that's where you get 15-year-old kids who are really fast on the phone and who can fold pizza boxes. There it is. And I met him, I chatted to him, because I wanted to know. I looked at him and I said, you've got my credit card details, buddy, so you better watch out. And he does. And that's the thing. We don't know on text messages who you're trusting. When you go to the doctor and you make an appointment, right, quite often you get a text message that says, you've got a doctor's appointment coming up. Do you have any signs of flu symptoms? Type Y for yes, N for no. Anyone had that text message? Hands up if you had it. The whole room. Okay. Who sent you that message? Because it wasn't your doctor. A third party. It might have come from HotDoc. It might have come from the receptionist at the clinic. Could come from anywhere. But you have no idea who sent it to you. And yet they're in your phone. You've now got a relationship with them, and they're giving you advice. Now, the doctor one doesn't work too much because you probably made the appointment, so you're going to say, well, yeah, I'll say, I know that this is real. But what happens, that's changed the way we think about things. For some people, if you ever go and get your hair or your nails done, I often see the same messages. They're saying, type Y for yes, N for no. They want to know if you've got a cold, and they want to mask up. They don't want to get the flu, which is perfectly okay. So this is the thing I wanted to point out to you. Who is it the person? Usually it's either automated stuff, it could be connected to an AI bot, or it's a young 15, 16-year-old young person who's got access. A lot of the medical record stuff that goes missing is not older people, it's young people who get in trouble with other boyfriends and girlfriends. Coffin cheaters, bikie gangs have a lot of girlfriends who are medical receptionists. I kid you not. All right, here's one from NAB. NAB Notifier, please confirm your billing. You've probably seen ones like this. And if you click onto the HTTPS, it says it's HTTPS, but it's actually not. It's using a different form of the letter S. So it's almost impossible to know if it's a real HTTPS. But this is them sending it to you, not you putting your own HTTPS in. By the way, going back to that example I gave you of your typing in to buy a Qantas airline, what happens when you're going to a website and the HTTP and you're at the payment bit and there's no S? What do? What you do, get out, no, because you need that airfare. What you do is you grab your mouse, if you're at a computer, and you drag it over where it says HTTP, and you put an S in. You put HTTP and make it HTTPS, and all the web address, and you just press enter. S, enter. And one of two things will happen. Either one, you go to the secure website of wherever you're buying something from, or you get a thing that says error 404. Anyone ever seen error 404? If you get error 404 on a payment gateway website, you are on a fake website. It's as simple as that. And some of you have seen 404s and gone, what? What's that? Well, now you know. Okay, so let's go on to the next version. That's NAB. Now, that NAB one was obviously a fake, and if you clicked onto it, it's going to download some nasty malware. It's going to take hold of something in your phone. It's probably going to find a password, get your password, or at the very least, get your details. This is one I got from going to Royal Perth Hospital, RPBG outpatient advice. This was around COVID time in 2020, I think. And so here's the thing. The first one was real, okay, which said, I'm unwell, and I answered the yes, no. The second one said, you attended a gastroenterology clinic, which I did, at Royal Perth Hospital. Please complete our 7-minute survey. Now, does anyone ever get surveys? Surveys in text messages are super, super dangerous. 90% of them, if not more, are absolutely evil. I clicked onto this one. It started asking some ordinary questions, then asked some more personal questions. And because I had enough nous to work and say, hang on a sec, this has got nothing to do with Royal Perth. And they want to know different. When they get to the part where they want to know your Medicare number, or they went to, it doesn't take much more than that. You realise you're in deep. But these things will ask for more than that. Some of you see this on Facebook, where you see a survey about a 1980s film. Anyone ever seen this? Can you guess these 1980s Hollywood actors? All right? Anyone do those? Don't do them. Please don't do them. You're putting yourself in terrible danger. Or can I guess, if you click on this, you can have an IQ over 150. What a load of twat. It's just simply going to ask you some questions. They'll be really easy. You'll convince yourself you're a genius, and you'll get sucked into some of the other follow-up questions. So please be aware of them. Okay, anyway, so this second one down here, the bottom one, which is a URL, takes me to a very, very nasty, one of the nastiest pieces of malware. Now, I'm lucky. I work at ECU in the Securing Digital Futures Research Institute. I've got a sandbox, so I can check anything I want. You don't have one of those sandboxes at home. You either have to check it and find out and download the malware or not. So my suggestion here is, if you're not sure about one of these things, then don't trust it. And trust is all you've got. You see, in the olden days, you'd look someone in the eye. Now you're looking at your phone and you don't know whether to trust it. And these text messages are the last 5 years, the next generation of cyber criminals. Question here.
You said to look for the S because it means secure, and now you're saying that it's a different S. How do we know?
Okay, and that's a really I'm glad that someone always picks me up on this. So in the first place, when you're buying something from someone else, you make sure it says HTTPS. All right? When it's someone else, and there's one, you can replace your own S in it. When it's something like this in a text message, you have no idea at all. Good luck. And when we're going to IVP 8, when we're going above what we've currently got from IVP 4, we're in all sorts of trouble. So yes, I don't want to scare you. I'm simply making it clear to you that you cannot trust all of the text messages on your phone. Oh, thank you. Okay. So here's one's from Woolworths. Anyone done those? During COVID, of course, you could go, instead of going to the shops, you could get them to pack it up and put it into the boot of your car. For people who are in Melbourne and Sydney, particularly in Melbourne, under lockdown for over 200 days, they lived by this for 200 days. And this was the Woolworths app. So the first one says that, yes, your order number 12345, whatever, is ready, blah, blah, blah. So there's 3 different messages there. The first one says, yep, you're ready, and you drive up. If you did this, I don't know if you remember if you do it, you drive up and you open your boot, and a boy, usually aged 15 to 16, would come out with your groceries and put them in your car, and you'd drive off. That was safe. So I've got 2 of them. And then the third one down here says, it doesn't say anything about groceries. It says, congratulations, on September the 23rd, you participated in a survey lottery competition and you finished 3rd. See what you won, and it's in blue. If you type onto that, it'll take you to a thing which helps you to basically give them control of your bank account. And it's very sophisticated and it's really nice. Just cyber criminals today no longer send you an email saying you've won £1 million. Cyber criminals today send you something in a text message that's saying you didn't win it, you came 3rd. Right? This one was attacked to a particular thing at Midland Gate Shopping Centre in Midland, which was around a $5 coffee. That was the prize. You were giving away your entire bank account for a $5 coffee. But it did it beautifully. You see, the cyber criminals today are much, much cleverer, much more savvy. They're not going to say ridiculous things. We heard before, if it sounds ridiculous, it is ridiculous. This is where you've got to use your own judgment and work out what to trust on your phone, because it's not unreasonable that you might occasionally do win 3rd prize in something. So you have to ask yourself, did I really enter that competition or not? Right? And that's where you use your own judgment, because some of these things will seem real and some of them won't. If you're ever in a shopping centre forgetting using your phone and there's a raffle, there was one up in Cottesloe Surf Lifesaving, where you could win a BMW. My wife, because she loves me so much, she bought me a ticket in that lottery. And on the little stub, you put your name and your address and your phone number and your email address. Right? Wrong. Why would you do that? Why are you giving them your name, your address, your phone number? You just want the beamer, right? You're not going to join the Cottesloe Surf Lifesaving Club. You're not going, I'm past all of that. And so here's the important thing. When you do feel out something like that, in a shopping centre, no online stuff, this is just old school. It's the same thing. Don't give your information away. I would put mobile phone number and I'd put Dave. That's it. I'm not going to give anything more than that away. I'd like to know if I've won the beamer. My wife, of course, because what she didn't tell me at first was, because she's so good. And what happens with that information, by the way? The stuff on the little ticket stubs on the lottery tickets? It's stored away, and if you have a look in the fine print, you'll need your magnifying glass. It actually says, by putting your information, you agree to have this shared with name of third party, and then you get rung up about things like, oh, would you like to buy pet insurance? And you get emails for all sorts of things. Anyone had pet insurance? You know that you're on someone's training list when you get things about pet insurance. Okay, it's the bottom line. So please don't fall for that, because that's a really common scam. It doesn't have to be online for people to fool you. It's about convincing you to trust something enough to just give your information away. In the olden days, in the club here, because if you know everyone here at Le Chenault Centre, that's fine. You can share your stuff with them. But don't share them with someone like me. You don't know me. All right? If I'm an outsider, don't give me anything. Don't tell me anything. if I ask you for your list of your name on my mailing list, don't give it to me, because that's just being crazy. Give it to someone you trust and that people look after things, and make your own judgment. Lastly, I want to talk about some of the things you see. All of this stuff, someone asks us, how would I know? The truth is we don't know on some text messages. They're really clever. But there are simple little signs that often give it away. So this one's from Gov. Which Gov? Is it the federal government? Is it the state government? Is it the government of Tasmania? Is it Jeremy McGovern? Gov, right? Asking me if I want to celebrate his birthday with him. Could be anything. The truth is we don't know. And cyber criminals will often shorten and abbreviate, particularly the 15, 16, 17-year-old ones will abbreviate everything. Now, I've got a teenage son, so I can tell you he has a certain language that he uses, right? And everything's abbreviated. Now, often, all I get out of him is a grunt or a nod or something else. But every now and then, he communicates with me, and his most common one is to do this. I'll do it slowly, so you just to see. So, in slow motion, here we go. Can you see a letter? Letter W, and then can you see another letter? E. She's going, whatever. It's the old version of that. Whoops. It's the old version of that. But that's what he does. And he does that all the time. Oh, whatever. Now, Italians know how to do this, and other people know. All right, there's a whole range of difference. But if you really want to get with it and get in line with your cybersecurity 15, 16 and 17-year-old, there's a whole new language. Now, I haven't got time to go through all of the alphabet for you. I'll just start you with that. But look out for that. You'll see it a lot more, particularly on old people. I don't know why it's a thing. It's like, yeah, whatever. Because they don't like you. And it's done very quick. All right, so I'm just getting you into it. All right, I'm almost there. That's another one from Westpac, just to say, look, Westpac do just the same. Again, it's dangerous. I'm never going to something that says you will be unable to use your Westpac services until you have done so. It's a threat. Just use your judgment, and I think as someone earlier said, just ring the bank. Did you send me a text message? Yes or no? If not, I'm just going to stay off. I don't need it. I don't need to do some payment right now. And now, let's talk about viruses. So, has anyone ever seen one of these on their computer? Warning, virus detected. I love it. I'll be honest. When I see this, it's good because it means my antivirus is working. All right? Really good. So, and on this particular one, which is, what is it? That's Norton's. So it's a Norton's antivirus. You can buy, if people always ask me whatever ones, I'm not going to tell you a name. Just get one of the good ones, one of the ones that are well known. Don't get the ones that are hardly ever known, because the good ones share information with each other, and that's good. This one had about a thing called a Trojan. A Trojan is a particular, if you see the word Trojan, it means it's a key logger. Key loggers on your computer are things that log your keystrokes. So when you're typing in David Cook, Westpac, password, I'm a silly idiot, blah, blah, blah. It records all those things, and then it can then have access to your bank account or your emails or your Facebook account, your superannuation account, or anything whatsoever with a keylogger. So always look for these things. Hands up who's got antivirus on their computer. Okay. Hands up who's got antivirus on their mobile phone. 5 hands. And that's all. So your absolute homework for today, absolute, if you do nothing else, put antivirus on your mobile phone. Now, here's the good news. If you've already got antivirus on any of these ones, if it's Norton or McAfee or Kaspersky or AVG or any of the big names, they're probably going to give it to you for free. You just have to click on and say, yes, I want to include it on my mobile phone. Most of the big ones, I think Norton give you, I'm not plugging them, but I think they give you 2 mobile numbers. You can do this. It's this, from my perspective, if you want to see and know the difference between an HTTPS that's real and one that's not, if you want to know a text message that could be real or dodgy, then use your whatever antivirus you do and put it on your phone, because I'm telling you, the thieves aren't looking to steal your laptop anymore. They're looking to use your phone. Okay, and I'm going to stop there. So thank you for listening to me. But I know we're going to have a question, so ask me away.
What if you only use your phone as a phone?
If you only use your phone as a phone? Well, it brings me to a deeper question, which is why do we call them mobile phones? Because they're really not mobile phones. They're computers, they're social media, calendars, they're diaries, they're date apps, they're everything. But your answer is if you're only going to use it as a mobile phone and you want to stay safer, get an old Nokia. A 6210, you can still buy them in most of the shops. $89 probably, don't quote me, but around that price. Big numbers so you can see the numbers, and just use it as a phone. It'll give you text messages. No chance of logging on to anything like that. I think that's great advice. If it suits you, use that. Because to be honest, a lot of smartphones, I actually had to buy a third phone because I was trying to run 3 phones when I was in Cyprus to keep away from some of the cyber guys. And I bought a third phone and trying to work it out because my Cypriot's not good. And I'm typing it in, trying to do conversions and things. Sometimes smartphones are really so tricky. They've got that many instructions. Had I had good internet, I would have looked at a YouTube clip, but I didn't. So go old school where it works for you. The passphrase for thing works for me. The best password checking, keeping thing is the thing in here until the day I die. And that's the way I like to have it. Any other questions? Sir? Okay, so Pay ID is one of the new set of different things which basically allow us to be more flexible with the way we go around payments. My thoughts are, I have 2 thoughts. One is the security aspect and one is the culture. The point is the culture's already here, so Pay ID isn't going anywhere, right, because it's worked out. Security-wise, I'm not happy about it as a general thing. I would not use it myself, but I see my friends and people using it all the time. So I think this is what you have to understand. The question isn't am I going to use it, because I won't, and I'm incredibly secure. I work at a university as a lecturer. I get around about 300 to 400 students every week trying to break into my account. These are students who are taught cybersecurity, so they know lots of tricks constantly, right? So I trust no one. But here it's important that you do trust someone, because if you trust no one, you'll never know. In this room, make friends and find people you can trust. I don't mean romantic friends with some Nigerian prince. So no, don't avoid the Nigerian princes. Generally, they're not the best of friends, and they won't share your same food habits or any of the other stuff, though. It'll just be a different thing. But no. So going back to Pay ID.
My issue is we pay ID, my dad or my brother or cousin can pick it up later.
Yeah, it's a really good question.
Often.
So there's and that's why I say it's about who you trust. And that's exactly where it is. The stats, unfortunately, I think I heard earlier, we heard someone saying, never share your password with anyone, but the stats say otherwise. The stats say that most couples, if you're a husband-wife couple, boyfriend and girlfriend, you're going to share passwords, at least on one of your accounts, maybe not on the chocolate, Tim Tam and ice cream account, but at least one of your accounts will be shared. And that's the truth of the matter, unfortunately. I can't beat that. My wife knows everything I do, pretty much. She does know I go to Inglewood, to be honest. She just chooses to, roll that into all of the other unforgivable things I do, like I forgot to put the bin out this morning as well. So, but she won't know about that until later today when she gets home. Question at the very back.
How successful are the banks in getting the money back, their money back?
How successful are they in getting their money or your money?
Well, your money, but they...
No. Okay. Once your money has gone overseas, it's gone. One of my specialities, or one of the areas that I've been a court witness for the High Court, is on the use of hawala and hundi funds, particularly for terrorist financing. I did that a few years ago. And once the money has left the shores, it's almost impossible to ever get it back. It's immediately shared, carved up and gone. So that's not going to happen. But even when occasionally you get a bank error in your favour. If you do have a credit card as opposed to a debit card, and I think debit cards are much safer, but if you do have a credit card and you're stuck with it, often credit cards do have purchase insurance, all right? And the other thing about it is if you've got household insurance, particularly with some of the big brands, I don't want to go through all of them, but I'm pretty sure RACWA has, but check your product disclosure statement, your PDS, and check what it says. Some different household insurances will insure you with cyber insurance depending on whether you can show that you had antivirus on all accounts, including all mobile phones and including on your electronic doorbell or on your electronic sprinkler system and everything else. But if you've got all of that, I'm wired like you wouldn't believe in my house. I can control the lights from here. I can set the air conditioner to be on warm for when I get there in 2 hours' time when I drive back to Perth. For you, sir, the answer is that most banks, once the money has left Australia, you won't get it back. And if it's still in Australia, they better be quick because it doesn't hang around for long. That's the truth.
Also, debit cards, how safe are they?
Well, in my opinion, debit cards are less unsafe. if you'll pardon my double negative. Credit cards attract credit card debt, okay? People often ask me, is PayPal safe? Which is a very good way of looking around this because people want to make payments. And the thing about PayPal itself is that PayPal is still currently the safest way for you to buy something from someone else so they don't get to see your credit card number. It's completely buffered. They only get the money and they don't know what your number is and your actual name on your card. That works for credit and debit. But one of the things about PayPal that isn't safe is that quite often the PayPal people know that you've made a transaction and you often get an email that says, this is what we call sniffing the traffic. So it's like, yes, he's just used PayPal. And they send you an email and said, we think your PayPal's been compromised. Click here with one of those little blue things. Click here and we restore it. Don't ever click on anything like that. Going back to your question about are debit cards safe, they are definitely safer than credit cards. A, because it's your money and you're not going into debt and so they're cheaper. And B, because they don't get looked at. See, a lot of both businesses and criminals want to hang on to a credit card because then they know they can anchor back to it. They can come back and take little men. Someone was talking about getting out, $1 a day or something or $1 a week, and they'll do that. Much harder to do on a debit card than it is on a credit card. It's possible, different things, but I'm just saying, you're asking, is it safe? No monetary cards are safe, right, by comparison, because they all have different ways of being disclosed and they're all digital, but they're safer than credit cards. Okay, take the least bad option. How are we going for time? Am I allowed to talk more? I'm happy to take questions. I've driven here, so just ask me away. I'll tell you about what else I buy apart from ice cream and Tim Tams. Can I tell my IKEA story? Okay. A few years ago, I went to a place called IKEA. Some of you have heard of it. Anyone heard of IKEA? Okay. I had my 6-year-old son, and at that stage, my wife and I hadn't been married for quite so long, so we were just kind of working out the stuff. But I knew that when my wife said we're going to IKEA, that wasn't really a question. It wasn't, are we going to IKEA? It was like, we are going to IKEA, right? So I'd been to IKEA before, so I knew what to do. I followed my wife, and we walked in. There was no point arguing with it. There was nothing in IKEA I possibly wanted. Who wants to go to IKEA and have your wife pick out furniture that you have to take home and then screw together with a ridiculously small screwdriver? It was awful. Anyway, we went to some places, and sometimes my wife doesn't tell me the whole story. She gets me to the shop, and then events unfold as we go through. So we got to IKEA, and it became, after a while, evident that she wanted new kitchen cabinets. And so once we got to the kitchen cabinet section, all right, and we're looking at different things. Anyway, my son, he was 6, and if you've ever been to IKEA up in Perth, the big one up in Osborne Park, they've got 6 computers in there, and in the kitchen section, you can go in there, you can design your own kitchen. You can put, here's my kitchen, and you can drop in so you can see how many cupboards you can fit in, where the fridge goes, where the sink, you can map it all out. It's a free service, fantastic. So my 6-year-old romps over there, and he's going over there. Then meanwhile, I swung back to my wife. Now, luckily I had a pen and I had a paper, and I'm taking out notes because there's one thing you can't be if you're a man. I know this is very sexist, but I just got to put it out there. The walk of shame, if you don't get it right the first time, having to go back for a box of screws, and everyone knows, they're just laughing, looking at you, all right? So you take a notepad and you get everything right, absolutely perfect. So I'm looking and I'm taking notes. My wife's doing the things, and she says, okay, we want it this depth and so on. And she wanted the specific handle. I had to make a note. It was the 20-centimetre handle with the inverted rivet at the back. And I've got that right here. And I'm getting all these different things, the colour of it and so on. And I'm looking over the other side, way over the other side. There's my son, 6-year-old son, and he's got a crowd of people around him. I go, oh, this doesn't look good. Anyway, so I said, yeah, left my wife, said, I'll just go and check on. Went over to the young fella. And he'd bypassed this program. He really wasn't interested in designing a kitchen. And he'd got into the accounts department of IKEA. He's 6, but he's my son. And he would often sit in the study and just sit next to me. He doesn't say much, but he just kind of watch, learn different things. So he picked up a few tricks. Anyway, he bypassed all that, jumped straight in. And he was calling out things, because he's a bit of a performer, and he's calling out this. And all of the people in IKEA, a lot of them have Swedish names. So he's going, oh, Ingrid, guess how much you earn? And he's reading it off a list. Right? He's going, Magda. Oh, Magda, you only earn this much. Right? Really, really inappropriate stuff. And, you don't... It wasn't long after that, I can't remember, a few minutes, the manager of IKEA came downstairs. She was not happy. I mean, she was just, Anyway, I gave her my card and I said, here's my card. And I said, Dr. David, I do. So I said, she looked at the card and she looked at me. She looked at the card and she called the police. So, police came. Now, luckily, they detained me. I'm not sure if it was officially an arrest. Let's call it a detention. I was detained. Luckily in IKEA, in all the corners, like they've got in here, they've got cameras. So we went back to the special room and we watched it all in slow-mo. It was fantastic. And anyway, I looked over to my wife. She could see that I was in the company of these two big policemen. And she just looked at me and she turned and she walked into cushions. Right? So she left me. Anyway, it wasn't long after that. We managed to solve it out. We looked through the footage. Indeed, my son had cracked in. It wasn't, and I turned a lemon into lemonade, I guess. We gave them a bit of a schooling about how they might need to have some better password protection at IKEA. They do now have very good password protection. I'm sure this happened a lot of years ago, so we're okay. But I've always wondered, it's so fascinating, we think that the cyber criminals of today are really experienced people with years and years of training. But this is my 6-year-old son, all right? He's dumb as an ox. Well, not really. He's a bit clever. He's doing his law exams today, so he's probably going all right. But because he'll need that for when he gets into trouble going to IKEA again. That's my IKEA story. Thanks for listening.